Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. A good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
So let us once again share a thought on the weekly Parsha. Towards the end of the Parsha, we learn V'koluam royen es hakoiles v'selapide v'eskoila shoifar. And the Mechilta says, royen es hakoiles, royen es anishma v'shoimen es anira. How could you see voices? You cannot see only sights, and you hear voices. But the Pasuk says, royem es hakoilos. And the Mechilta goes beyond what the Pasuk says. Royen es anishma v'shoimen es anira. They heard the sights and they saw the voices. So obviously that is miraculous. In nature there is no such phenomenon. But Reb Chaim Evoloshin and the Bnei Yissaschar, Reb Tzvi HaMelech Medinov, one of the greatest Hasidic masters and the greatest disciple of the Gro, and if these two say the same, that is the most powerful coalition that must be agreed upon by everyone that this is Toras Emes. And their interpretation is Al-Pi Musar, and they explain. Every human being has 5 senses, and these 5 senses feed him with all the information he could assume and accumulate and achieve. Sight, hearing, smell, taste, and the feeling of your fingers, of your hands, of your body. Of all these 5 senses, the most tangible, the most reliable is what you see. People will never question what they have seen. But in our world, in our microcosmos, in the world of Yehadus, of Emunah, what we heard is more important than what we have seen. What we heard from our fathers and forefathers, what one generation passes down to the other. Avoiseinu sipru lanu. Both the Ramban and Sefer Chinuch in his introduction say, most of our Yiddishkeit is Mesiris Avois. Yes. One generation to the other, pass down the torch. And so will we to our children and grandchildren and to all the generations to come. Royen es anishma. What we hear should be tangible, most tangible. That is the interpretation of the Bnei Yissaschar and the Nefesh HaChaim. What you hear is real. Depends from whom you hear. What we received and heard from our fathers, forefathers, from our great teachers of Torah in every generation, those are the real truths, the self-evident truths. And that is the Pchin of Royen es Anishma. Bnei Yisrael, Bahar Sinai, were elevated to a Madrega in which the entire physical world, with all its temptations, was like a distant memory. Shoimen es anira. What was most tangible is what we heard. What they heard in Har Sinai. V'koloam royen es hakoilos ve'es koil hashoifar. There's an amazing story told in Bava Basra Dafayin Hey. Rabbi Yochanan Yosef Adorosh, Rabbi Yochanan sits in Beis Medrash and he darshans a posik in Novi v'samti kod kodshim shotayich u'sha'arech avnei ekidach. Ose the Kodesh Baruch Hu lahavi avonim tovim v'merigoli Hashem shloisha mama v'chokek behem 10 al 20 u'mamidan b'sharei Yerushalayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring gems and diamonds, precious stones that will be shloishim amo al shloishim amo, huge. And he will carve doors, a chalal of 10 al 10, 10 by 20, and he will put those precious gemstones, b'sharei Yerushalayim. Liglag olav oisoy talmid. So one of the disciples found it amusing, found it somewhat funny, and he laughed. Rabbi Yochanan obviously didn't see. And then he left to the sea. And while he's an ocean farer, he sees angels carving out precious stones that are shloishim amal, shloishim amal. He turns to the angels and he asks them, what are these for? Whom are you working for? And they say, Kodesh Baruch Hu osed lahamidon b'shar Yerushalayim. Obviously this Talmud was a great tzaddik. Otherwise he wouldn't see angels. Otherwise he wouldn't talk to angels. Otherwise the angels wouldn't talk to him. They wouldn't respond to his questions. So obviously, he was a great man. And when he comes home, he storms into the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Yochanan and he says, Rabbi, you're so precious. Droish, Rabbi, droish, lecha, noa, lidroish, kasher, omarto, kein roisi. With my own eyes, I witnessed it, I saw it. And he's so excited. How would you expect Rabbi Yochanan to respond? Well, I would expect him to stand up and kiss this Talmud on the forehead, bang on the beam and say, silence, I want you to hear what he has to say. He saw with his eyes what I darshaned. Rabbi Yochanan's response is very different, and it's very harsh. Reika, Adam reik shekamoischa. You're such an ignoramus. Lule ro'iso loy hemanta, yov be'enav yosei gal shalat somis. Why was the Rabbi Yochanan so angry? And why was the Talmud punished? Not when he left, but rather when he comes back and shares the story with all the others. I think the point is, Reika, lule ro'iso loy hemanto. Could we accept a situation in which a Talmud Chacham believes only when he sees? That's tragic. That's dangerous. Lule ro'iso lo hemanto. Wasn't it enough to hear the Gadol Ador darshaning a pasuk? So you believed only when you saw. And maybe that is mido keneged mido. What is a man without the neshama? No one ever saw a neshama. What is a man without a neshama? Just skin and bones, gal shalat somis. Because the most important things in our lives are not what we saw, but what we heard. What we heard from our great teachers. No one ever saw an angel. No one ever saw a neshama. No one ever saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not even Moshe, ki lo yir'ani ha'adam v'chai. But these are the undeniable truths of our Amunah, of our Torah, of Yehadus. V'chol ha'am aroyim es ha'koros. Yosef Lovoi, we will once again be elevated to that same madrega. Ki ayin ba'ayin yir'u b'shuv Hashem Tzion, v'ra'al kol bosa yachdav ki pi Hashem diber. Not shamu kol bosa, but rather ra'al kol bosa yachdav ki pi Hashem diber. And as we say in Kedusha Musaf and Shabbos, v'hu yashmi einu b'racha b'avshenes, la'einei kol chai leimor, not la'oznei kol chai, but la'einei kol chai. V'hu yashme'enu, berachma v'shenes, la'einei kol chai leimor, hengu al tiyescha macharis koreishes, lihi yoisluchem le'elokim. Bebiaz goel tzedek, b'mheira v'yameinu, amen. Have a beautiful Shabbos.